Is Daf Yomi is the Daf Yomi for Shabbos Kodesh. It's going to be Bava Metzia Daf Lamed, and we're recording it on Friday. And this is dedicated for Shemira for the Chayalim, Matzah for the Shvuyim, and the Yeshua for Am Yisrael. Zok the Mishnah on the top of Lamed Samad Aleph, Hamavkid Peros Eitzel Chavero, somebody who deposits fruits with his friends. Afil Hein Avudin, even if the fruits are about to be lost, Yiga Bahem. He's not allowed to touch them. He's not allowed to sell them. The Gemara is going to explain the reasoning. Rav Shimon Gamliel says, "Mochron b'fnei bezdin." They're allowed to sell them in front of the court. Because it's like he's returning a lost object to the owners, and so therefore, since if you don't sell them, they're going to get ruined. You can sell them. The Gemara says, "My time. What's the reasoning that you're not allowed to sell them?" Amar Rav Kahana, Adam wrote bekav shelo mitisha kavim shel chavero. Because the person wants his food more than 9 kavim of somebody else's food. Rashi says, Chaviva olav. He wants his food more important than other people's food because he works for it. And a kav that he worked from himself is better than 9 kavim that he gets from other people. Because he worked for it. So he wants his food better. So he doesn't want you to sell it. And now Bar Yitzchak says a different reason why you can't sell it. Because we have to be concerned that maybe the person who deposited with you, he took truma meiser, he made them truma meiser. He made this food to be his truma meiser, and he used it as a way to tithe his other food elsewhere. And so therefore, since that's the possibility, so therefore you can't touch it. So the Gemara now says, let's challenge this. Meisvei, we have a brisa. The brisa says, we challenge it from a brisa. The brisa says, Hamafke Peros Eitzel Chavero, somebody deposits fruits with his friend, Harayzeh will yiga by him. He's not allowed to touch it. And because he can't touch it, Lufikach Balabayas also son Truma Meiser Makamachar, because the person who's watching it can't touch it, therefore the owner can use it as Truma Meiser for his food. So to separate as Truma Meiser. Now, Bishlam Rav Kahana, according to Rav Kahana, who says that the reason why you can't sell it is because the person wants it. So this price makes sense. This price is consistent with that approach. So it makes sense according to Rav Kahana. Therefore, that's why it says, therefore, the person can take Truma Meiser. El Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, according to Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, this price doesn't make sense. Why to say, therefore, he can take Truma Meiser? There's the whole reason that you can't touch it is because maybe he did take it as Truma Meiser. So the Gemara says, no. So, this is what it means. Once the rabbi said that we can't sell it, once the rabbi said we can't sell it because we're concerned that maybe he took Truma Meiser, therefore Balabayas also on Truma Meiser Makamacha. Therefore, for that reason, Balabayas can take them as Truma Meiser from another place. Amar Rabbi Bar Chana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. So says Rabbi Bar Chana in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, Machokes b'chtei chisronan. So says Rabbi Yochanan Machidish, and when our Mishnah has a machokes between Tanakama and Rashbag, that machokes is only b'chtei chisronan. That machokes is only according to if that machokes is only b'chtei chisronan. What does that mean? That if it's depreciating like other crops, meaning to say like it goes down the normal manner in which crops depreciate. But if it's like rotting, if it's going bad, more than a typical depreciation, then divrei akol mochron. Then even Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, then even the Tanakama would say that you could sell it. Everybody would say you could sell it under those circumstances. Divrei akol mochron bebezin. Everybody would say under those circumstances you could go to the court and sell it. So the Gemara says, well, this is a machokas according to Rabbi Nachman Bar Yitzchak, because Rabbi Nachman Bar Yitzchak says that the reason is that maybe we took Truma Meiser. So if you took Truma Meiser, this position of Rabbi Yochanan says you could sell it if it's more Yoter Mechtech Lisronan, this is certainly not consistent with Rabbi Nachman Bar Yitzchak, because we should still have to be concerned that maybe he took Truma, so therefore you wouldn't be able to sell it. But Rav Kahana milei mepligi, but it's Rabbi Yochanan necessarily arguing with Rav Kahana, who says that the concern is that the guy wouldn't want you to sell it. Maybe kikama rachmana b'chtei chesronim kamar. So maybe kikama Rav Kahana b'chtei chesronim kamar. Maybe when Rav Kahana says that he wouldn't sell it, that's only if it's a normal depreciation. But if it's more, then he would indeed sell it. So the Gemara says, but how can that be? But it says explicitly he wants it more than 9 kavan of his friends. So even if he loses so much money, the Gemara says, no, that's a guzma ba'alma. That's just an exaggeration. So Rav Yochanan and Rav Kahana could be consistent. So the Gemara says, let's challenge Rabbi Yochanan's position. Again, Rabbi Yochanan says that everybody agrees, even Tanakama, you could sell it if it's a major depreciation. So it says, Lefikach Ba'abayis Osan, from the Bryce, it says, Lefikach Ba'abayis Osa Osan, Truma Meiser Makam Acher. And the Ba'abayis can take Truma Meiser from another place in him. But why? V'lecho Shtoma Havel Yoter Michtechas Ronan, V'zamninu, V'ka'achal Tavoim. So the Gemara says, but why? Don't we have to be concerned? Why can the Ba'abayis, wherever he is, take Truma Meiser from it? Why don't we have to say that maybe it was going way down, and then the person was watching them sold it, and then now he's going to be eating tevel because he thought he was using that food as his Truma or Meiser, and actually it was already sold. So the Gemara says, no, the reason we don't have to have that concern is because it's very uncommon and it depreciates to such a degree. Gemara says, well, so the Gemara says, if it goes down to such a degree, it's not common. So the Gemara says, so you mean to say that if it would be, if the Gemara, so the Gemara says, but if it would be the case that the fruits would go down, indeed he would be able to sell it. That you would say could sell it. But why? How could he sell it? Don't we have to be concerned that he took Truma Meiser from another place? So how could he sell it? Gemara says, yeah, even though he's allowed to sell it, we sell it to Kohanim who are allowed to eat Truma, and we sell it to him as the value it as though it were Truma. So the Kohen is allowed to eat Truma. So therefore, that's how we sell it. The Gemara says, well, Nachman Bar Yitzchak, according to Nachman Bar Yitzchak, who says that you can't sell it because maybe he took Truma, Nami, well, then he should also allow you to sell it. Namni, Nazinu Kahunim Bahar Truma, B'dmei Truma. Why don't we say that he would allow you to sell it as though it were Truma? So the Gemara says, Baha Puigi. This is exactly what Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak, this is exactly what Rav Bar Chana and Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak are arguing about. What are they arguing about? They're arguing about the following. The Rabbi Bar Chana Savar Yoter Mechteches Ronan Lo Shliach Midi. So he says that Rabbi Bar Chana says it's very uncommon for it to depreciate so much, and so therefore, since it's Lo Shliach Midi v'chimishtakach, and if you were going to say that it goes down more, it depreciates a lot, it's only after a long time. And so therefore, yes, and so therefore we don't have to be concerned that afterwards, that after he'll sell them, he's going to take Truma Meiser. And if he had used it as Truma Meiser, he would have done it before it depreciated to such a degree. And so therefore, and if the Balabayas would take it as Truma Meiser in another place, he would have done this before it depreciated so much. Therefore, if it goes down so much, therefore you could sell to the Kohanim for the value of the Truma. Whereas Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, he says it is common for it to depreciate to such a degree. And so therefore, when the fruits reach this stage of major depreciation, it happens immediately. And so therefore, he would never have tithed it. And if we're going to sell him to sell it, then sometimes he'll come, the watchman will sell it before he takes the Truma Meiser from them. And when he takes the Truma Meiser from it, well, Yada the Zamni won't know he has sold it. So, and then he'll end up eating untithed produce. So therefore, that's a dispute indeed between Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak and Rav Bar Chana. Gemara again challenges Rabbi Yochanan again. What was Rabbi Yochanan's position? But everybody agrees that if it's a major depreciation, you could sell it. So Gemara says, Meisvei hamafkid peiros. We have the Bryce that says if somebody deposits fruits with his friend, or he deposits virkivo and then it rots, or yayin v'hichmitz, or deposits wine, it turns to vinegar. Shemen v'hivish, he deposits wine, oil, and it turns bad. Devash v'hivish, or honey, and the honey goes bad. How does honey go bad? Honey is supposed to be the one food that never goes bad. But I guess here they're saying that the honey ferments. Really, it's an unusual thing. The honey is supposed to be the one food that doesn't spoil, but somehow it went bad. Areza in all these cases, lo yigiba and Divrei Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says he still can't touch it, so that's a contradiction to Rabbi Yochanan. Chachamim omer osen lahem takana u'mochrim bebezdin. Chachamim say you can make a takana and sell them in the bezdin. When he sells them, he can't sell them to himself because that looks bad. So he sells them to others. Now we're going a little tangent. So too by a charity collector, if you don't have anybody to give the money to for the poor, you give it out to others. And you don't take it yourselves. And Gabai Tamkoi, and also the person who's a charity collector over food that they collect to distribute to the poor. When there's no poor people, they sell them to others. They don't sell them to themselves. But anyway, we see from here, Katani Mias, we see from here anyway, but it says explicitly, Peros Kivu, that if you have fruit and it rotted, Rabbi Meir says you can't sell it. And so therefore, we see that this is indeed a question. So Rabbi Yochanan is arguing with Rabbi Meir, and doesn't it mean I feel even though they depreciate it, and so therefore, Rabbi Yochanan is arguing with Rabbi Meir, and he said it's sheet according to everybody. So it's a question on Rabbi Yochanan, because Rabbi Yochanan said l'divrei akol. So that's the question on Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said everybody agrees that if it's a major depreciation, you sell it. He says divrei akol mochran. So the Gemara says, isn't Rabbi Meir talking about a case also where it's a major depreciation? The Gemara says no, that's not what he's talking about. What the Mishnah is talking about is the normal depreciation, and that's why the Chachamim say you could sell it, but Rabbi Meir says you can't. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, it's talking about the case where the wine turns to vinegar, the oil becomes bad, and the honey becomes bad. It's obviously the yaser mechdei chesronanin. It's obviously a major depreciation, and still they say that, and so it's not about mechdei chesronanin. It's going yoser mechdei chesronanin. That's where Meir says you can sell it. So we're seeing from here that Rabbi Meir is that's where Meir says that you can't touch it, even though it's yoter mechdei chesronanin. Meir says no. Shani hani, no. These cases are different. The kivan to come. So these cases are different because once they reach the status of deterioration, that's it. They're not going to deteriorate more. And so therefore, in general, Rabbi Meir would say that you could sell it. But in this case, once it reaches that level of deterioration, he won't allow you to sell it. So the Gemara says, Shemen v'hivish dvash v'hivish. But my chazah, well, if you have oil that goes bad or honey that goes bad on top of 38b, what are they actually good for? Gemara says, well, I'll tell you what they're good for. Shemen chazil gildai. So you can use the bad oil to work on the leather, and devash lukatisha the gamla, and you can use the honey to rub it on as a medicine on the camel. The Chachamim omrim osam lem takanu mochrim bezin. So Chachamim saying in these circumstances you could make a takana for them, you can fix them and sell them in the bezdin. Says the Gemara, my takanta. What is the takana? So the Gemara says, my takanta v'lehu amravashi l'kankanim. You could make the takana and sell them. How's it a takana if they're not going to go down in value anymore? Why can you sell them? Gemara says because otherwise the containers that they're containing them would also get ruined, and so therefore you could sell it so that the containers don't get ruined. The Gemara says, okay, so what's the nature of the dispute between Rameir and the Chachamim? Mar Savar will have some Meruba Chashu. So the Chachamim say you could that Rameir says you're allowed to sell it if it's a major depreciation, but we'll have some Nuah, but just a little depreciation like these jars, these kankanim, then low Chashu, you can't sell it. Umar Savar Afiu will have some Nuah Nami Chashu, that even for a small depreciation like the like the kankonim, then you could still sell it. Rashbag says you should sell it in the court. It's like you're returning a lost object to the owner. That's the position of Rashbag. So in Mar we learned Rabbi Abba bar Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Yochanan halacha Rashbag. The law is like Rashbag that you could sell it because it's like you were returning a lost object. Rav Amar Rav Nachman halacha k'divrei chachamim. The law is like Chacham. Amar Rabbi Yochanan chadazim. Now, why does Rabbi Yochanan have to say the halacha is like Rashbag? Didn't Rabbi Yochanan already say this one time that the halacha is always like Rashbag? Amar Rav Bar Chanan Rabbi Yochanan kol makom sheshana Rabbi Shimon Gamliel b'mishnah seino halacha k'moso chutz me'arav tzidam v'raya achrona. Rabbi Yochanan said whatever it says the position of Rabbi Shimon Gamliel in our mishnah the halacha is like him except for the three cases which are called the cases of Erev, Tzidan, and Raya Achrona. Those are the three cases. Rashi says Erev is talked about in Bava Metzia. Tzidan is in Mesechas Gittin, and Raya is talking about if somebody says I have another proof, whether or not you listen to him. But these are the three cases where the halacha is not like Rashbag. So Rabbi Yochanan already said the halacha is like Rashbag. So why does he have to say it again? And Gemara says Amarai Ninu Aliba the Rabbi Yochanan. So the Gemara says. So Rabbi says that Rabbi Yochanan said this principle, and Rabbi Abba didn't say that Rabbi Yochanan says this principle. So the Gemara says, "Me the Rabbi Shimon Gamliel nishma from the position of Rabbi Gamliel nishma the maridin karav nichse shavoy." From the position of Rabbi Gamliel, it says that if you're going to the fruit are going to go down in value, then you should sell them. We learn from here that if there is somebody who is captured, the relative can, we could say that the court, Moridin Karov, that the court could take the closest relative and bring him into the real estate of a person who is captured to work them, because since he's not able to, the person who's captured is not able to give orders about his assets, therefore the court's responsibility. And so therefore they put a relevant to the property so it doesn't get ruined. With the Rabbanan, from the fact that the rabbi said that you can't sell it even if it's getting lost, we learn from here, Nishma, the Emorid Karbon Nechse Shavoy. We learn that you can't put a relative in the property of the captured one. Gemara says, how do we know that's the case? Maybe Rishon Gamliel says in this case you could do it because the whole principle will be destroyed. But in that case where there's a captive who's going to be captured, in that case, maybe Rabbi Shimon Gamliel would say you can't do it because the principle is not going to be destroyed. And and also maybe the Rabbanan say the reason over here that you're allowed to sell it, either like Rav Kahana, because we know maybe over here the Rabbanan say you're not allowed to sell it because they hold like Rav Kahana says Adam wrote to Kav Shalo, he wants his own work, or like Nachman Bar Yitzchak that maybe took Truma Meiser or Avodah something. In that case, maybe they wouldn't let you. Maybe they would say in that case the Rabbanan would say you do put in a relative. Gemara says the trade timing in who. You mean to say that these are separate laws? But we have a principle that Shmuel says the law is like Rabbi Shimon Gamliel that you sell the fruits, and the law is like Shmuel who says you go down into the relative's estate. Who isn't it because it's one reason? And Gemara says no, trade time and two separate reasons. And indeed it's logical to say that it's two totally separate laws. Rav Nachman, Rabbi says the name of Nachman, the law is like the Chachamim. And Amar Rav Nachman, Moridin Karav Nechse Shavoy. And indeed, Rav Nachman said you can bring a relative in. We bring the relative into the assets of the captured person to work them. Ela Shmamina, the trade time in Shmamina. We see it's two separate reasons. So in Mar, we learned the question is whether or not you bring the relative into his captured relative's assets. Shavoy Shenishba. Let's say you have a person who's captured. Rav Amar Amorid, and Rav says you don't bring him into the estate. A Maridin Karvan Achasav, Shmuel says Maridin Karvan Achasav. You do bring him in. Bishashamu Bo Shameis, if they heard the captured person died, Kuyamo Pligi the Maridin. Everybody says you bring the person in. Of course you do in those circumstances. Ki Pligi, one of the arguing Bishashamu Bo Shameis when they didn't hear that he died. Rav Amar A Maridin, Rav says you don't bring him in, Dilma Mabsalu. Maybe he's going to destroy the work. Maybe he'll mess it up. which more we're reading, because we're going to view this person who goes into the estate like a sharecropper, meaning he's going to have a share of what he works. Therefore, he's not going to ruin it. So the Gemara challenges this position of Shmuel, says that you bring the person down into the estate. It says in the pasuk, I will be angry at you, and I know your wives will be widows and your children orphans. Why does the pasuk say that your wives will be widows? That their wives will want to get married, and the court won't allow them because we don't know if he died. We're not going to allow the children to start working the estate. So we see that we don't allow the relatives to go in. Amarava. No, that means we don't allow them to go down and to sell it, but we do allow them to work it. There was an incident in Nahardai. Upashta Rav Sheishes Mehamas, and he said from this Brisa, he learned that you're not allowed to go into the estate. And so therefore, they wanted to kick the person out. So Amalei Rav Amram, don't prove it. Maybe our Brisa means only if he's trying to sell it do we not allow. Maybe you're from Pumpadisa, and that you bring an elephant into a hole of a needle, meaning to say you explain the words of the Tanaim in a very forced manner. It's like their wives and their children. Just like we don't allow the women to marry at all. We don't say, oh, you can live with another man, you just get married. Here it's not allowed at all. So the Gemara says, and this idea of whether or not we bring the relative into the estate of the captured one, this is a dispute amongst the Tanaim. The Tanya, not only do we not take the person out of the estate of his relative if he's working the land, but even if we heard that the owner is coming back, and before the owner got back, he quickly took the fruits that he grew, and then we're going to say that he's okay. He doesn't have to pay for them. And this is what's considered the property of the captivity. If one of the brothers went overseas, one of the relatives went overseas, and we heard that they died. So according to this, you're allowed to go into the estate. But however, you go into the property of an abandoned one. We take him away. What's an abandoned property? If one of the fathers went overseas and we didn't hear that they died. He says, I hear like Netushim are like Shvuyim. Another case is if he goes into the property of Retushim, then we kick him out. What are Retushim? So one of them were here, but we don't know where they went. Why do some we call Netushim and one we call Retushim? Netushim, the Baal Karchan. Netushim is that they went against Baal Karchan, against their will. And that's Afkata de Malcha. The king kicked them out. Retushim de Midat, and they went on their own. Emal Banim Retusha. That's today's daf. That's the daf yomi for Shabbos Kodesh. A big shkoyach to everyone. And